Hi, everyone. Welcome to our next gen training, How to Put Your Career Plan in Place. My name is Candace Thorson. I'm managing editor at GovLoop, and today I'm also your moderator. So thanks so much for joining us. And I want to give an extra thank you to our sponsor, WEPA, for helping us put on this session today. So let's get right into it. If you take a moment now and try to envision what your career will look like in, say, 5 or 10 years, what do you see? Like, have you identified firm goals for your career yet? Have you figured out the steps you have to take to actually get there? Because the reality is that even though we can't control the exact trajectories of our professional lives, we can build a roadmap to set ourselves up for success and to develop the skills that we need to advance. That's a lot easier to say, of course, than it is to actually do. So we have an expert today who's going to discuss how you can establish a career plan that helps you get where you want to be and honestly where you probably have to be. So before before I introduce him, and he has a very cool PowerPoint, I will say, I do have some quick housekeeping things I have to run through. So if you just bear with me real fast. We have great resources available for you on the console, like we always do, including the PowerPoint that you're about to see. So if you just check out the resources button on the bottom panel, that's where you can access them. If you want closed captioning, just look for the show captions icon at the bottom of your screen. If you run into some technical challenges, because they do happen, just put a message in the Q&A tab, and Andrew, my colleague, will help you out. There's also the chat feature where you can put in comments or just general thoughts or even some questions if you want. And that's an open forum, just as a reminder, where you can talk among, all your attendees. And then we're recording this training, so check your inboxes tomorrow because we're going to send you a link to the entire session on demand. And then last, I told you I was going to run through this fast. We're giving you one CPE credit for your participation today. So to get the credit, you have to take all three polls. You have to participate in the whole session, and then afterwards, you have to fill out a post-event evaluation form. So I talked fast and I got that out of the way. I want to introduce our speaker. We have Patrick Malone. He is PhD and Director of Key Executive Leadership Programs at American University. So I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you so much, Candace, and a pleasure talking with you and meeting you today. And Andrew, thank you for all the work behind the scenes, and a great appreciation to my friend Emily, who invited me to join you all today. It is really, really nice to be here. I love seeing these people chiming in from all over the country. It's really, really neat. We were actually talking about that, about where we were, and I am coming to you live from the Chesapeake Bay in Southern Maryland. So if you see this rocking a little bit, it is because I'm on a sailboat right now, but it's kind of where we live, and so it's kind of where we work. So there you have it. Nice to see everybody, and really looking forward to our time together today. Please, as Candace mentioned, if you have any questions or comments throughout the time, just throw them in the chat. I'm very informal. I don't like to regiment things too much, and I really don't like waiting until the end to say, okay, are there any questions? So I'm not going to do that. Just ask as we go, okay? And I hope you have a lot of questions. Um, so let's talk a little bit about what now. And this is really such a cool topic for us to really, it's so relevant right now to all of us in our careers, no matter where we are. But I think before we get to the topic of what now, I think we have to just take a breath for a moment. Take a deep breath with me, everyone. Let it out nice and slowly. I think what we need to do right now is just take a breath and think about where we are and what we're dealing with. What is going on right now in our nation? And I want to share with you some data about what's going on right now with all of us. And this is not federal leader data or public service leader data. This is American data. This is our family, our friends, our communities. This is what we are seeing right now. So before we talk about where we're going and what we want to do, let's just take a moment and talk about what things are looking like right now, because we know that we are stressed. We know that we're lonely, and we know that we're afraid. Let's talk with stress for a moment. Start with that. So right now, 60, I know you're all laughing, by the way, I can tell because these are funny videos. Um, right now, 63% of our country, the working folks in our country, are thinking of changing jobs, and it's because of stress. So normally, what's really fun is when I do this in person and it's in one big agency, I always ask for a show of hands of who's thinking of leaving, and then everyone kind of laughs, and it's really pretty funny. I'm not going to ask you all that, but right now, chances are more than half of the people on this call are thinking of leaving their work because of stress. We also know that stress is having a big impact on our relationships. And once again, a very funny question to ask in person is tell us about the impact on your relationship. I'm not going to ask you that today, but I think it's important that we acknowledge what stress does to us in terms of our personal relationships as partners, as friends, as family, as cousins, as sisters and moms and dads and sons and whatever. Yes, all of these things are really impacting our relationships as well. And by the way, the data right here, this comes from the American Psychological Association, and it is consistent over the last 4 or 5 years. This has not really changed much at all in terms of the impact of stress. At work, 83% of us are reporting being stressed at work. It's like, wow. And just think about it from the perspective of how our lives changed pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, when everyone was told get back to work, which is insanity. But everything just changed and it changed again. And it didn't have to make sense. And frankly, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but that contributes to these extremely high stress levels in our jobs. So we know we're stressed, but we're also lonely. We're also lonely. Now, this data comes from Cigna, who does an American loneliness survey every year. Once again, held very consistent for the last several years at about 61%. Oh, can you all not hear me, Danielle? I just saw that. I don't know if I can turn up my microphone, but I can try to speak louder if that will help. Lots of lonely out there, everybody. It is really difficult right now for all of us. And right at the beginning of COVID, that was just about the time that we started seeing research on loneliness start to appear in some, kind of major, New York Times and the Atlantic and places like that, Harvard Business Review. All of a sudden, everyone's talking about lonely doesn't mean living alone, and loneliness wasn't invented during COVID. Loneliness has been with us for a very long time, and it has an extraordinary impact on our lives, on our careers, on our relationships. 61%, imagine that, 6 out of 10 report being lonely, and it's actually very devastating. And this brings me to my first poll question. Which group do you think reports the most loneliness? And we'll give you a minute as Candace is going to launch that one. There we go. Which generation reports as the loneliest? One choice only, please. Do the poll. We'll give you about a minute to do that, and then we will go back, get the results, and then I'll tell you what the answer is.
Just a reminder, to instead of putting, you can put your answer in the chat, but just make sure you actually take the poll for it to count. So
And we are
I
going to
don't
grade.
know.
I'm
I'm
teasing.
sorry, what'd you say?
I said we're going to grade you. I'm just saying. So you better get it right.
We'll just give everybody, we just want to give people enough time to be able to respond. So we'll just give a few more seconds because it looks like people are answering this pretty fast.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Yep, you'll all notice that I did leave off the data on generations. It depends on what you read as to how they're grouped. I did leave off the traditionalists. Those are the oldest of the old. Those are the great grandparents or grandparents in some cases. I did leave those off. That oldest generation is not the loneliest. Interestingly
Hmm,
enough, they're not the loneliest, which is why I leave them off. The older generation you have on here would be the boomers. That'd be the oldest one you'd see.
that's interesting. That's interesting. Okay, I will well, I'm talking really loudly just in case because I tend to not talk loudly. So I'm making a concerted effort to quasi yell. So um
I will do the same.
okay, so anyway, I'll end the poll now because we have a lot of responses.
Wonderful. Let's see how we did. Oh, look at this. Fascinating. Okay, so Gen Z came in first, followed very closely by millennials, boomers, and Xers. So great answers, everyone. And that's pretty much exactly the way, with only one exception, Gen Zs definitely are the ones that have the most loneliness reported. Um, Followed very closely by millennials, and then Xers, and then boomers. The boomers are actually happier than the Xers. So the older people tend to be less lonely. And then, of course, I mentioned the traditionalists are even less lonely. So let me share a little bit about why that is. There's a lot of research right now on that. Uh, I love Gina. Gen X doesn't care. We were raised by ourselves. Thank you for that. That's great. So here's what we suspect, and this is research that is currently going on in the social science world, and that is that we see friendships defined differently for older citizens than for younger. And this is not a criticism of younger generations. We have five daughters, which is why I look so tired. And of those five daughters, they all grew up. Most of the oldest ones had social media introduced around middle school, and then the youngest one was born into it. And so what we find when you look at the younger generations is so much of their social platform, their interaction, all the stuff they do is electronic. So ending a friendship is very quick by, just delete it or block it. Dating, you swipe left, you swipe right. I don't know what that means, but I've heard it's funny. So, these are the kind of things that are happening. And so as a result, the younger generations are looking at relationships in different ways. Once again, not a criticism. They are just different. The older generations don't have that. The older generations have, I would say, friendships and connections that are much deeper that can't be wiped out by a simple click. And so, therefore, that's what we're beginning to see in the relationships, and that's what contributes to. Now, what this really matters, everyone, for a lot of reasons in the workplace, because of working teams and working together and whether you're hiring or getting hired, this impacts all of us. So loneliness is definitely out there, and in fact, if you look at the data, the age group of 18 to 22 reports being lonely 73% of the time. But look what happens when you're a heavy social media user. And I see some comments in here about the social media thing, and that's a wholly different direction we could go. But yes, pros and cons without question. We can all enjoy social media for what it is, but when it becomes a substitute for human interaction, it becomes a little bit trickier. And I think that's what we see. So we definitely have lonely. The last thing I wanted to mention was the fear. So we have nation of fear as well. Just in the chat, if you all could throw into the chat for me, I don't have a poll question on this, just a chat. Could you all throw into the chat for me what you think is the number one fear of Americans? The number one fear of Americans. Anything you think, just toss it in the chat. Let's see. Security and safety. Thank you, Robin. Death. Yeah, Sarah, it should be. Poverty, good dying, alone, losing job, pandemic, economy, homelessness, bankruptcy, health issues. Really good ones coming in. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Rejection. That's a good one, Norvell. That's a good one. Missing out. Oh, Lee, that's a great one. Getting sick, going bankrupt. I see a lot of things tied to homelessness and finance and all those good things. Yeah, these are excellent, excellent answers. So let me share with you what the research shows on this. Every year, Chapman University does an American fear index. I really encourage you to look this up. It's fascinating. Here are the top 10 American fears. Number 10, biological warfare. Number 9, terrorist attack. Number 8, North Korea. Number 7, America getting in a world war. Number 6, not having enough money. Saw a lot of the finance ones. Number 5, nuclear weapons. Number 4, people I love dying. Number 3, cyber terrorism. Number 2, people I love becoming ill. Now, I'll stop here for a moment because I'm going to tell you during COVID, 4 of the top 10 fears of Americans were tied to healthcare. That kind of makes sense, right? But this is what's remarkable. The number one fear of Americans has been the same fear for the last 5 consecutive years. Carolyn, the loneliest group was disease, by the way. So number one fear, last 5 consecutive years. It's been the same fear for the last 5 consecutive years, which is really amazing. And that is the following: corrupt government officials. Number one fear for the last 5 consecutive years. Um, a lot of people thought that it was going to go away, that was going to drop out of the top 10. But I think the election and then some of the subsequent, decisions that have been made by the current administration probably, and maybe just general fear of the unknown, and then of course the political divisiveness in our country, all these things. When people answer this question, though, when they say corrupt government officials, they're not talking about you. They're talking about elected officials. That's what they're really looking at. They're looking at elected officials. So anyway, this is where we stand. It's frightening. James, your comment about the USA State of Play, very good about not trusting each other. That's kind of been kind of where we sit right now. Spent a lot of time this summer in Europe and had a lot of discussions with friends and folks over there, and it is just very interesting. So this is where we sit right now. So we have fear, we have stress, we have loneliness. So what do we do now? So now we talk about our career. Wait a minute, hold on. Stress, fear. My career. I still have to worry about my career. Yes, I do have to worry about my career. And you know what? This is just something that we all face. And so let me share some thoughts. I want to talk a little bit about the career. About first of all, just about identifying career goals amidst this mess that we're in, a little bit about planning for them, and then kind of how to keep yourself on track. Those are going to be the main three things I cover, beginning with the career goals and establishing those. So the first thing I wanted to mention was, we have people on this line that are at various stages in their career. And it doesn't matter where you are in your career. This applies to you because many people will change careers, they'll find different things they want to do. But these are questions that we really ought to be asking ourselves. What is it that floats your boat? Think about that for a minute. It's easy to go, "Oh, I love it." I mean, I could say, does being a college professor float your boat? Um, I really love my job. Does it really float the boat though? I don't know if it really does. I mean, not, I don't really does that. I don't know. Maybe I really love it, but is it really what I love to do all the time? It's okay to ask yourself this question. And you don't have to answer this question by saying, "Oh, I want to be an accountant." Come on. I mean, but what you could say is, I don't like working with people. And you know what? It's okay to say that. It is okay to say that. I don't like working with people. Oh, Akia, thank you for that comment on the slide transitions. My wife taught me to do that and they get better. Yeah. So you can all tell I've got some ADD going. But anyway, so what floats your boat? You know, it's okay to say, you know what? It doesn't float my boat to work with people. I had a student, a senior scientist from Health and Human Services and from the Food and Drug Administration in my class. My first class that I teach in our leadership program is always about mindfulness and meditation and those kind of things. She came to me at the end of the first day and she said, "I am out of here." I said, "What, did I offend you? Why?" And she said, "I don't want this. I like my microscope. I like my petri dishes. This is what I want. I don't want to deal with people." And I thought, you know what? That's so cool. What floats her boat is not dealing with people. That's great. I've got a cousin who's like a brother to me. His As long as I've known him since we were little kids, he always says, "God, I hate people. I just hate people." And there are some of you, I saw someone there from Montana. I bet you like horses and animals better than you like most people. I mean, come on, right? So it's okay to say, working with a bunch of people doesn't float my boat. Working from home doesn't float my boat. Going into the office and fighting traffic every day does not float my boat. This is where we start to craft kind of where we might want to go with our career. And it's okay to ask yourself those kind of questions. For example, ask yourself as well, how do you lose track of time? Like what is it that you do that loses your track of time? Here's another one. Ask yourself this question. What do I read first? What do I read first? Now, very few people actually have newspapers anymore. But think of, you probably get your news on social media. So what is it that you go to first? If you go to the CNN app, what tab do you click on first? What's the first thing you read? This gives you a clue as to the things that you're kind of interested in. And there's another trick for this. It's called the Saturday morning test. It's self-awareness, and that will kind of be a self-awareness will be a theme for everything that we do today together because it's so crucial. And so the Saturday morning test, this is when I ask you the following question. If you could do anything on a Saturday morning that you wanted to do, anything, no family obligations, no friend obligations, no work obligations, what would you do? What would you do? Now some people will say, I'd go for a hike. or I'd read, or I'd sleep, and I'd try to sleep as late as I can. Now, obviously, we can't make a living sleeping, but when you ask yourself these questions, then it's a great start. Okay, so Sarah, you just said paddleboard in the Chesapeake. I don't know what you do for a living, but I tell you what, though, that might tell you that you like to work outdoors, right? Maybe it tells you you like the water. Maybe it tells you, I mean, it can give you all of these things, give us a little bit of a clue. There's not, and look, I know it's hard, everybody. We often think, oh, where's my answer? I got to get that answer. Not going to happen. It ain't going to happen. It's just not going to happen that way. It's going to be a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this, and you put it all together to create the path that you want to be on. And once again, it doesn't matter if you're at the beginning of your career or midway through your career. It doesn't matter. Or at the end of your career. It doesn't matter. These are the questions we should be asking ourselves because it makes us happy. It makes us productive. It makes us good people. And it also makes us really good at our jobs. So that's the second thing on this. The other one that I wanted to mention about identifying career goals, don't get lost in the image. Don't get lost in the image. It's so easy to think about, oh, well, I want to be this, and we craft this beautiful. So at one point in my career, I was going to be a hospital administrator. And at the time, I was going to wear expensive suits and drive an expensive Audi car, whatever, and blah, just all the materialistic nonsense you can ever imagine. And I was young, I had it all in my mind. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create this image and I'm going to do this. And I was a miserable failure. I was a miserable failure. And the reason I was a failure was I never thought about what all that entailed, the competition, the brutality of the healthcare system. It was really hard. And I didn't like it and I didn't last. And so, by asking ourselves, by not getting caught up in the image, I actually had a senior, when I was in the Navy, I had a senior naval officer say to me one time, this admiral, we were about to fly to Italy. We were staying at the airport at Dulles. Excuse me. And he looked over at me and he asked the typical question that most admirals ask junior officers. So, Patrick, where do you want to be in the next 5 years? What do you see yourself doing? And I'm like, God, this is what these admirals do. They have these stupid canned questions. And I looked at him, I said, Admiral, with all due respect, that's a stupid question. I said, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know where I want to go. I said, you're asking me that question. I was a little more tactful than I'm being right now. This is more for presentation purposes. But I looked at him and I said, honestly, Admiral, you're looking for a title. You want me to say, I want to be an executive officer at a hospital. And I said, I don't know what I want to be. I really don't. I said, I know it sounds kind of, it sounds a little Cat Stevens like to say this, but I'm like, I just want to be happy. I want to have fun at what I do and I want to make a difference. That's all I want. And I don't care what it is. That's all I want to do. And he was like, oh, that's so, anyway, it didn't go well. But I think this is the thing. Don't get lost in the image. So career goals. Now, here's our next poll question. So speaking of career, what do you think? I mean, how many times are we going to change our careers at any given time in our life? How much, just in the average number of career changes, what do you think they are? Meanwhile, I'm going to look at some of the comments here. Um, yeah, James. Yeah, listen to respond. Absolutely. You can always tell, James, when people are like that because they're crafting their answer as people are speaking to them, and we all do it. I'm a terrible listener, but we all do it. It's something else. So. Okay, yeah, and Dwindle, I'm going to downplay your hospital administrator idea later. Actually, I still kind of did it, but because I cared a lot about healthcare. Um, Candace, did we launch the poll for this one? Oh, there it is. Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Okay, wonderful. I'm really curious to see where you all come down on this one.
Wow, people are really answering fast,
Oh, good for them. They rock. This is a good group. I
like
can feel it.
fast.
I can feel it. Nice.
This is
Okay, Paul
interesting.
gets extra credit because Paul complimented me 20 minutes into this presentation, and I haven't even gotten rolling yet. So this is great.
So just as a reminder, if you put in your answer in the chat, I was having technical difficulties. I should have put my message in the Q&A and asked Andrew for help launching it. So make sure you vote. Make sure you actually vote in addition to just putting it in the chat.
Interesting. I'm looking at what I saw in the chat. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, very good. Awesome. Very cool.
We'll just give it like 10 more seconds and then we'll wrap it up. I'm curious what the actual
Oh,
answer is.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. This is a question that I asked, and then I thought about not asking, and I'll tell you why in a minute. I
You
invented,
know, my father was a teacher. He taught for like 38 years in the same high school. That was his only job, and he
right.
retired there, and it was like that's unheard of now. Nobody does that.
It truly is. And since you brought that up, Candace, one of the things I was going to ask, I thought about for a poll question, and you all may find this interesting, was the happiest professions. And it is all over the map. I mean, it's all over the map. But if you look at a lot of the data, a lot of times education pops up to the
Yeah.
top. People kind of do it as a calling, or healthcare kind of do it as a calling. But I also saw accountant, because there's an ending. I'm not good with numbers, but there's an ending. So okay, let's see what we
Yeah.
got. Okay, very good. Okay, so we've got the majority of you said 3 to 4 times. So here is the answer. This is the official answer, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put an asterisk next to this answer. And that is because when I looked at this, there are so many bits of data. Some of them talk about, career changes in 3 to 4, 5 to 7, 4 to 9, 9 to 12, 12 to 14. I saw one a little bit of research that said that Gen Z will change their jobs 10 times between ages 18 and 34. So I don't think we really know. This is a very hard question to answer. The reason that I put this in as a poll question was because I just wanted you to be aware it's going to change. Let me give you a hint. Look at this. This is me. This is not me, but pretend this is me. In high school, I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a writer, right? So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be, oh, yeah. Oh, good point, Kevin. Job versus career. Rebecca, I see that as well. And that is another little distinction in the data that you have to be very careful with. In this case, I want to be a writer until my journalism teacher told me you'll never make a living. So then I decided I wanted to be a Marine. And my dad said, no, you'll never do it, son. You're going to smart off to some gunny sergeant and they're going to slap you around. It'll be really ugly. Don't do it. So instead, I wanted to become a dentist. And that was something that I really wanted to do. And I started out as a dental major at the University of Texas in Austin, where I grew up. And I thought, this is my career. And then I failed organic chemistry. That didn't work. So then I thought, well, I'll be a surgical tech, which is the person that passes instruments in surgery. Now, this is something I actually did. I was an OR tech for 5 years. That's how I worked my way through school. I was able to pay for school by becoming an OR tech. Still one of the best jobs I've ever had. Really, really loved it. That's me, or that would be me passing that instrument right there. By the way, this is a belly case. You can tell because that's a Balfour retractor on there, and then you can see the various right angle clamps and so forth. Loved that job, but that didn't last. So I was going to become a nurse until I went into the CEO's office of the hospital where I worked to complain about something in the surgery department, and he turned me into a hospital administrator. So I went to school to become a hospital administrator. I did that as a civilian for a couple years, but I didn't like the competitive nature of private sector healthcare. So then I decided to go into the Navy and I became a naval officer. I did that for 23 years as a healthcare administrator-ish, sort of, and then ended up transitioning into academics and becoming a professor, which is what I am now. So you can define that as different career changes. You can define it as different job, but that was my career. The only thing I left off was being a lifeguard, but that was way a long time ago. So they're going to change. So how do we know? Let's say now that we figure out, okay, this is where I want to go. And one thing I will say, and I don't want to make this about me, but I'm going to make it about me. So, because I got to tell you about my career, and I will tell you one thing I was always very good at doing was planning. Really meticulous at planning. I always had lists, and our daughters, they can't stand it when dad says, "So what's your plan? Just tell me your plan." And we'll talk about it, but what is your plan? And so I always had a plan, and it changed a lot, but we're going to have a plan as part of our career. So let me share with you a few thoughts on this. So I think one of the main things to think about with planning is don't get locked in. I have students, my students are graduate or executive level students. Most of them are executives. So most of them are senior 15s and senior 14s. That's the majority of the students that I deal with. But I do deal with 9s to 11s and 12s. And then I also have graduate students as well. One of the things I find, especially early in their career, is that people will get locked in. It's like that image thing I mentioned before, where they're like, I've got to go here. And I see this early on, and I'll see people, especially new to government or even in government, who'll say, you know what, I will never go work at DHS. I just made that up. I nothing, just picked on DHS. I will never go to DHS. Well, don't say never. Don't say never, because you know what? If you want to have a successful career in government, bopping around from agency to agency is a good thing. It's one of the things that a career in government offers you. My goodness, the ability to work at the EPA for a few years and then go to Department of Ed if it's still there, tomorrow, and then go from there to USDA, right? Or to APHIS at USDA or somewhere else. I mean, it's a wonderful option. Don't get locked in when you're doing your planning. Think about the ways to do this. And Julie, I'm with you. Yeah, in terms of progressing, yeah, I mean, and there's look, if you get to where you want to be and you're the best 13 in the world and you love your job, you're ahead. Don't chase it. I'll talk about that in a minute. But don't get locked into your plan. There's always other options. I can't stress networking enough. And I do see a bit of laziness with some of my colleagues, some of my students who just like, well, I mean, we set up this amazing panel with all these federal leaders, and I asked the grad students to come, and they were like, well, it's on Saturday. And I'm like, yeah, well, like what time? Well, like 10. Oh, on a Saturday? I'm like, you know what? Do you want to come and meet these federal leaders or not? I mean, it's so hard to do. It takes a lot of work to do it. And it's interesting too, because I think that the the in-person versus the virtual and stuff has changed everything with terms of network. So there's a lot of options. And I think the point about introverts that Julie made is a really good one as well. It's not easy if you're an introvert. Obviously, I am not an introvert, but I will tell you that I respect introverts so much because they actually think before they speak. People like me just talk and we kind of think and figure it out as we're talking. But no, networking really matters. And it doesn't have to be in-person happy hours. It can be in any number of ways. Professional associations, right? It can be, and virtual options give you a lot of options. One thing I would really recommend for networking is to try your very best to open yourself up to being a volunteer. Like when you are in a professional association or involved in whatever, try to volunteer in areas that you're interested in because it helps your resume. I always, when I have people come speak in my class that are federal leaders, I always tell them, put this on your resume. Here's what it would look like. Invited lecturer, American universities, key executive leadership program. Even simple things like that, speaking at high schools, getting out and doing, being part of an advisory board for the local fire department, whatever, be creative. But anything you do is going to make you more attractive to an employer. And it doesn't have to be in your field. Let's say that you're one of my very best friends from college became the artistic director of ballet at a large ballet, city ballet company. If I ever did any work with him, I'd put that on. I'd reach out, say, man, I'm going to volunteer to be on your board. I want to volunteer to be part of one of your task forces. Just whatever interests you. All of these things matter. They don't always have to be tied to your profession. They can be tied to service in general, and it gives you a lot of options. So the other one I wanted to mention: overachievers beware. Overachievers beware. First of all, uh, I would say probably a senior leader now, I think I'm probably getting to that category in my life where I can say I can tell if you're an overachiever, and there's nothing wrong being an overachiever, but if you're a ladder climber, I'm going to know it. And if you use phrases like, well, I punch that ticket, I punch that ticket, ain't no recipe, guys, ain't no recipe to make this work. That's not the way it works. And when I hear that kind of really aggressive career language, it personally pushes me away. I'm not hearing the passion for the work. In fact, what I'm hearing is passion for promotion and passion for next level. And you'll get there, but not with me if I don't hear the passion and caring about the work that you want to do. That's really what I want to hear. All the promotions will come with it. And if you're too overly aggressive, and once again, I'm not saying it's okay to be aggressive and assertive in your career. I'm not saying it's not at all. But part of having that kind of personality or drive can lead to some disappointment. And it's unwarranted disappointment. You don't need to be disappointed if you didn't get the job or if you didn't keep the job that you wanted. That's okay. You can move on to other things. The other thing I want to mention, and it's kind of tied to this, is the idea about, once again, I mentioned self-awareness. Um, I have three rules for self-awareness, and I want you to write these down. So here's my three rules. Three rules. Number one, does this need to be said? That's my question. Does this need to be said? Does this need to be said by me? Does this need to be said by me right now? Those are three wonderful questions. Does this need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said by me right now? Those are really good, strong self awareness skills to be able to develop. And the more you know yourself, the more that you're going to find out what you're passionate about. Go back to the Saturday morning test, and it makes it a whole lot easier to plan. And then I think the last thing I'll mention for planning is to look for organizations that you have similar values with. And I'll tell you, I struggled with this in the Navy. I was in the healthcare world in the Navy, but I was also I will put this out there. I come from a very socially liberal background, and I am a very socially liberal person. And so for me, when the Navy had the don't ask, don't tell thing, and I had a lot of friends in uniform that were completely gay, and they were completely violating the law technically at that point in the Navy, and so was I, because I knew and I didn't report them. And so there was an organizational values conflict there for me. I did not believe in what the Navy was espousing at the time, and I was very adamantly against it. So I had to make a choice of what I was going to do. And what I chose to do is to try to attack it from my perspective and try to make changes in very subtle ways. I won't go into how I did all that, but try to move the organization toward the right direction. The reason I mention this is that we aren't going to always have full agreement with the organizations we're in. There's always going to be some battles. I struggle with my university. I have a lovely university, an American university. It's a great place to be. We are a public service university, which is awesome. We're also wicked expensive, and I just struggle so much with the cost of education at our school, and the doors that don't get open to a lot of people that deserve it. So just think about as you're planning where you think you may want to go, do a little bit of planning, know the organizations that you're looking at, understand what they're about, and figure out if you can mesh mostly. You're never going to mesh fully, and if you do, good on you, congratulations. But try to get as far as you can, of course, but that's something to think about in terms of planning. Okay, so let me see. Last one, poll question here. So now we've talked about, kind of the drive, identifying what we want, how to plan for it. So let's wrap up with how we're going to hold ourselves accountable. What contributes to my inability to follow through on my plans? You've got four choices here. You've got the Dunning-Kruger effect. All right, that's your first one. You've got acrasia. And if you don't know what that is, you're going to have to look it up. You also have, actually, you may not even know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is. So I'll tell you what these are. So Dunning-Kruger effect is when we think we're better at things than we really are, and we just don't know it. Everybody has this, by the way. Acrasia refers to acting against our better judgment. Acting against our better judgment. That's acrasia. Action uncertainty, just not knowing what to do, kind of being lost, or the way we think. The way we think. What do you think contributes to your inability to follow up? And I'm going to, oh, someone's recovering financially. Oh, I'm so sorry about that, Denise. I'm sure you'll agree it's a great school, but boy, I'll tell you right now, Denise, it is to get a master's degree in our program with a 25% discount coming to our master's in public admin, the executive version, it's about $60,000. And that's a $21,000 discount. So it's really 81. That's crazy. It's expensive everywhere. Yeah, it's all over the place. But those of you that want to come get the number 4 ranked executive MPA in the country, you need to reach out to me. I'm doing shameless advertisement here, and I did not get permission from Candace to do this, so I'll stop there. But I'm going to give you my email address because we are a great program. Ranked number 4 in the country. Somebody asked me where Harvard is. Go ahead and ask. No, don't. It doesn't matter. They're not in the top 5, so we don't care where Harvard is. We're number 4. All right, how are we doing on the poll?
I'm going to give everybody like say 10 more seconds because the
All right.
responses aren't coming in as fast for this one, but we don't want to wait too long. This one
Aaron
is
Breland.
hard. I don't know which one I would choose.
Is Aaron Breland, I recognize your name. I recognize your name from 2019. I really do. I don't know if we had class together, but I do recognize your name.
I'm assuming that's good.
Yep. So
Okay,
So we
I'm
all
going to end the poll now, guys.
right, rock on. Sounds great. Great. Okay, let's see here. Action uncertainty. Good. Dunning-Kruger acrasia. Just as a reminder, the Dunning-Kruger, this is when we think we know more than we do. We think we're an above average driver. We think we're an above average chess player. We think we're an above average uh, conflict solver. We all fall into these traps. It's really remarkable. Acrasia against our better judgment. Sometimes those decisions are made for financial or personal reasons, very difficult. Action uncertainty, I think that came in number one. And all of these are correct. They're all correct. I think the one thing I would say, and this is what I'm going to close with in a moment, is that the thinking patterns are the ones that really get in our way. Because we think of things in the way that we think of ourselves, the way that we view the world around us, makes it very difficult to shift. It makes it really hard to what we call grow our thinking capacity. And this goes back to childhood, everyone. This is kind of my area of expertise is the science of the way the brain thinks and why we think the way we do and how hard it is to change that. I'll give you one little bit of boring neuroscience data, and that is that according to Cheryl Statz, who's a researcher at Ohio State University, she says that at any given time we have about 12 million bits of data floating around us. We are only able to consciously be aware of about 30 bits of 12 million bits of data that's out there. Only 30 bits. That's it. So, what that means is that a lot of things we do unconsciously or subconsciously because these are things that we have always done, we've always seen, and we fall into those traps all the time, all the time. It's perfectly natural and it's good for emergencies, not so good for learning to think new or for thinking, quote, outside the box. It's harder to do when we don't know that these are things that we struggle with. So, given that, how do we stay on track? Um, the first thing I think is to, definitely use the tools that you got that you're comfortable with. Not everybody is comfortable approaching this that we're talking about in the same way. Some folks are going to struggle with networking. Some folks are going to struggle with just kind of keeping track of. Some folks are going to struggle with figuring out what they're interested in because they're interested in everything, right? And we've got a daughter that's that way. She's interested in everything. I'm like, well, can we narrow it? For just bring it in a little bit. You know, try to figure out what tools work for you, especially in terms of how you track and plan. Some people are good with just paper. I learned very early in my career to keep very meticulous notes in a certain way, and I still do that the same exact way. I use a lot of colors. I like to use colors and shades of color in the way I keep my notes and keep track of files. And, obviously I'm not, and even on the computer, my files are all color coded. And these are things that make it really easy for me. But whatever tools you're comfortable with, by all means, use those. Um, expect the unexpected because it's going to happen. I mean, if COVID didn't teach us anything, that's going to take it. I mean, that right there is going to be, it's going to be unexpected. It's going to be very, very difficult. And these are things that we just have to anticipate. This goes back to what I had said in one of the earlier slides about thinking too hard about the image. I never got there. If I had to be completely honest, which I will be completely honest with you all, my image of my personal image for so many years was being a dentist. I so badly wanted to be a dentist and failing. I mean, literally failing the coursework. Now, there's a lot of reasons I failed. I was at the University of Texas. It was Urban Cowboy. If you don't remember that movie, look it up. That was my life. Urban Cowboy with John Travolta. That was my life. And so I was not studying. And so I deserved everything I got. This was totally on me. But I look back at that, I'm like, you know what? I could freaking teach at University of Texas now. That's just not there. I wanted to be a dentist, right? I like working with my hands. This is so good. Of course, I didn't end up that way. But being okay with things not turning out as we expect is a really wonderful skill to be able to have. So expect the unexpected. And this one I cannot stress enough. Focus. You got to care for yourself, everybody. There's a wonderful book out there because I'm seeing a lot of comments in here about the challenges and the fear of changing careers in midstream, making very risky decisions. I hear you, and I wish I had a really easy answer for you for that, and I don't. The only answer that I have for you is the more mindful that you are, the more you focus on self care, and social awareness and all of those things around you, the more you grow your thinking capacity, the easier it will be and the better decisions you will make. That's the only thing I can promise you. I can promise you that. What I can't promise is that it's always going to turn out the way that, we hoped. We just can't promise that. There's no way. That unpredictability is going to be there. So flexibility matters. One thing that I always recommend is focus on what you can control. And there are things you can control. A lot of what we've talked about so far are things you can control. That landscape outside you may look different, but you are the one that has the ability to pivot. If you've planned well, if you've thought through things, you didn't put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, you can pivot, and that's under your control. So that's what I wanted to close with. The last thing I wanted to mention for this was and I've got one quick video I want to show you before we wrap up. But there's a great book out there by a guy named Saul Alinsky called Rules for Radicals. And in this book, Saul talks about self-care and how it's an important component of what we do. There's another a terrific book, and I'm blanking on the title of it right now. It is called ah, I want to give credit to the author and I'm blanking on it, but what he talks about is he says it's never a selfish act. Self-care is never a selfish act. It's the only thing we really control, everybody, is ourselves. It's our hearts, our minds, our souls, our passion, the way we care for others. That's the only thing we have 100% control over. And when we do not do self-care, we don't give ourselves the gift that we need to give ourselves in order to do the things we can do for others. We rob ourselves and we rob others of our ability to be our very best. So I want to show you this last video and then I'll have a comment on the end and we'll wrap up. But this is a video that is about an autobiography. And you can find this video if you type this into YouTube. This video will pop up. Let me show you the video.
An autobiography in 5 short chapters by Portia Nelson. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There is a hole in the sidewalk. It is a very deep hole. I fall in. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit, but my eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down another street.
Love that so much. Look, I think, walking away from this time together, I hope that you, through really, really determined self-reflection, meditation, mindfulness practice, all of those things, I really hope that you'll be able to figure out what street you're walking down and what holes you're either falling into or avoiding. These are all the things that really make a difference in the way we choose our careers, the way we approach them, and the way we track our success. Don't be too hard on yourself. It's okay to fail, and we all will. We all have, and that'll happen again. But I do hope that this has been of some value to you all. And once again, I greatly appreciate the invitation to be here with you all today. And thanks to GovLoop for all the great work you all do. This is shameless promotion of the books that I've contributed to. I will tell you all the Leading with Love and Laughter book is really cool. The Little Big Decisions book that's going to come out this fall, so hopefully you all will enjoy that. But after all, I just want to say thank you all again. Candace, thank you so much.
This was wonderful. And as you were talking, I can see from all the comments in the chat and everything, I think everybody enjoyed this. And as you were talking, I was cycling back through various stages of my career and checking boxes and being like, yeah, yeah, well, that was a failure. Yeah. But but it led me to a great place. So I just want to thank you so much for joining us and for the books and all that kind of stuff. I know it was really interesting. So just as a reminder, some of you asked about the resources. So there's the resources button on the bottom of the screen. You can access that. But if you're having trouble, when we send you the link to the on-demand version of the video, it will include the PowerPoints. It will include, we're doing the video file, that cute little video file separately, so that you'll be able to, excuse me, access that. And you'll have some other stuff. So you should be able to get all the resources that you're getting here. But anyway, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you on behalf of GovLoop and NextGen and WEPA. I just want to, thank you for taking the time today, and just say that as always, we really appreciate all the work you do, and your dedication to serving the public. So have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thanks so much.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Patrick.
Thanks, Candace.